Hey man,
Hey, how are you?
how are you? Good, bro.
Good, good. You ready?
Yeah, go.
Go. Okay. Before to start, I have two things to say. First of all, happy birthday. Happy birthday. I know it was a couple of days ago, but I still wanted
Yeah.
to tell you. And on the other hand, I want to say this is a dream come true for me because I'm a big, really fan of Overkill, and having you here is so surreal for me. Really, I'm very quiet right now, but inside of me, I'm like, Bobby.
Oh shit. I mean, if I'd known, I would have taken a shower.
And
Gracias. Gracias for the birthday wish, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, especially in an exciting time with a new record. So perfect.
of course, man, of course. Today I have some questions related with you, and obviously another questions with related with the new album. So I want to start this interview saying that with this album, Overkill reached a mark of 20 albums released. I think Overkill is one of the thrash metal bands that released the most albums, if they are not the one that released the most albums. So I want to know how do you do it, man? It's not irony because it's a lot of work to stay active like this, making records and also go on tour. I'm not a musician, but I imagine it's very demanding.
Well, I see the guitar on your wall in the back. You must do a little bit of playing, right?
Yes,
So you must be
exactly.
a bit of a guitar player. So I suppose, I mean, we never thought about it. I mean, I always like to joke and say he who dies with the most toys wins. So it's just to do more records is to do stuff that we love doing.
Mm,
I think there would have been we'd be working on number 21 right now if it wasn't for the pandemic. So our process and our the way we kind of work everything on a clock is always every 2 years or so, 18 months to 2.5 years. There's a record, and I
mm,
think that it's helped us stay visible in a part of the genre that it's not forgotten, but it gets less press than like the big four, for instance. Than the Metallicas, the Slayers did, Anthrax, Megadeth. I mean, this is the second tier of that. So to
mm.
stay visible, I think it's necessary to release records and to release quality records, or at least go in and do the best you can under the circumstances. So that plan has always worked for us. I don't think I've ever thought of accumulating 20 records, but I do know that 20 records means that we've toured, 20 times, and for instance, 5 or 6 down in South America. Every few records or so, we get to go back there. So for all those records, there's been a lot of good things that it's brought us, and the majority of that is touring.
Cool. Now I have two more questions a little bit similar. One is, how do you maintain your voice? Because I think you are one of the best vocalists of thrash metal. But do you do any kind of exercise or warm up before recording or going on stage?
Yeah, I took vocal lessons when I was younger. I was in my 20s.
Mm,
I still warm up with those tapes. They're obviously on my computer now,
mm,
but I had issues with my vocal cords after the first year of touring. We had done Europe with Anthrax, and then we did the United States with Slayer.
mm,
And after all that singing, I'd never done that much singing. I'd really damaged my vocal cords. So it happened at a good time because it was early in the career, and it gave me a chance to repair them by singing correctly. And I went to an instructor named Don Lawrence in the city, and he had done Tony Harnell from TNT. He'd done Dee Snider from Twisted Sister.
mm.
He had a long list of guys that he had success with. So I mean, I was really blessed or very lucky to get in there early on in my career, and then after that, I just never worried about it. It was the whole idea I do this is because I enjoy it and it's fun. I mean, if I have to wear a scarf, or not ride my motorcycle because it's too cold, it's
Mm.
not. It's just not for me. I like living the way I like to live. I mean, I may be old, but I mean, I'm still.
Cool, man. Cool, cool.
I thank you for the compliment, but it's just that I'm lucky. I'm not afraid to sing, and I learned early on to take care of it, but not to worry about it. I mean, stress can also ruin a guy's voice too.
Cool, cool. You look very healthy, in general. I mean, do you train? Do you go to the gym or no? You. You are quiet with
No,
that.
I have one in the house that I use. I have a tension gym. It's called Bowflex. So it's all tension. It's not weights. And as I got older, tension was a lot easier to use than weight, because weight, you can jerk I used to use the free weights, but you have to jerk those weights up. And I think as you get older, you have less support and there's a different bone structure. So I think I'm just aware of, I've always been aware of my body. I've always toured enough to stay in good shape. I live in the mountains. I've always raised German Shepherds. So that means I have to spend time in those mountains with those dogs. You know, so that they can be healthy and they can be happy and satisfied. So to walk in the woods for 2 miles a day, something with some dogs running around is always been it's been a pleasure of mine. It doesn't feel like I'm working out, but it's just a healthier lifestyle, I think, from a day-to-day experience.
Cool, man, perfect. The other question is, how, after making so many records, do you get inspiration to write good lyrics? I mean, is it difficult for you sometimes at this point, or is it easy for you?
Well, I mean, it's a combination of both. Sometimes it becomes very easy, but there's an area I go to. It's almost like a pool of topic, but the pool of topic is based on the change in life. So I've always used whatever has happened in my life, whether that be positive or negative. I think Overkill has always been a band that appears negative from the outside, but the reality is, and then you can tell by this conversation, that we obviously have fun in what we do. It's enjoyable. It's not so fucking serious, you know. The music has to be serious, but it doesn't have to be the topic, you know. It's going to change the fucking world. If it changes your day, that's a good fucking thing. That's kind of the way I look at it. So I kind of confess my sins and highlight the changes in my life personally, because even though I'm older than you, I think that if we like the same type of music or the same genre, we're a lot alike. I mean, we like a lot of the same things, you know. It was always said, you know, where's Bobby? He's probably outside with the fans, sitting on the front of the car, drinking warm beer and talking about heavy metal. You know, I mean, that's, you know, so this is where I come from. It's not about being, you know, it was never about being a fucking rock star. So I write about what's real to me and try to avoid politics and give people a place to go that they identify with, but can also escape from the day-to-day bullshit that plagues you through life, you know, the ups and the downs.
Now, about the album, I want to know, what did the album cover and title refer to? I mean, these two things are related or connected with the lyrics of the album, or does each song talk about different things?
Well, I mean, I think we got lucky with it, first of all. You know, I mean, all things must come together with a record, you know? It's like sometimes you're making a record and it goes like this, and it's not correct. But sometimes you're doing the album artwork and everything just lines up perfectly, you know?
Yeah.
And I think in this case that happened, but I think a lot of it was lucky. We were Didi mock title songs. The song "Scorched" was mock titled as opener, and you know, when I got that, I mean, I've had an opener in every demo from him since Horoscope, you know. So I knew that he wanted to open the record with that, and I thought about it, and I listened, and I was having a hard time with it. And I was in my kitchen. It was during the pandemic, and I was singing while I was cooking, and it was just Scorched. The whole thing came out. You know, I've been working on it. The whole fucking song came out. I mean, exactly the way the chorus is, that's what I was singing in the kitchen. And I said, well, that means that I put the work into it, which means that somewhere in there, this is a good representation of this record. So when I handed it over to the guys, they were like, this has got to be the fucking record title. And I was like, yeah, I like Twist of the Wick better. But it went 4-1 was the vote, and they were 4. So I was fine with it. And then all we did was we had the two demons on the cover that faced each other. You know, looked like they were in conflict. Yes. And we gave that title to Travis Smith, and then he developed it from there. So again, it was just luck, and you know, everything kind of came together like this, whoop, you know, and it just fit into the puzzle. Mm-hmm. So it fit us. It was like revisiting Feel the Fire from the early days. It was good luck. It was good damn fucking luck to be able to have that title track and use that as the title of the record and have it all come together within, you know, a 2-week period. So
Cool, man. Yeah, I really like the new cover, the picture, and obviously the album. The album is amazing, man. I made a review of the album, and in my opinion, is one of the best albums of this year so far. So congrats.
Gracias. Yeah. Funny when a guy that's been around as long as Didi and I have been around, and you look at artwork like the front of Scorch, the first thing that comes to your mind is that would make a great fucking t-shirt.
Hey, speaking about that, I have the shirt of Overkill here. If I can show you, let me see. Here.
The electric age.
Exactly. Yeah.
Was that the last time? Was that the last time in Buenos Aires?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think we played a place called Teatro
Flores.
Teatro Flores, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Now, I have a question, obviously related as well with the new record. Either on this record or on the Overkill discography, is there a song that is or was very vocally demanding for you performing it live?
Well, on this record, one that was vocally demanding was Fever. It's the 7th track, and it's because of it's really an eclectic kind of a song. I mean, it's an absolute sledgehammer groove when it gets heavy, which is something that we like doing. And whenever it gets to that kind of that sledgehammer, like, fuck, knock everything down feel, for me, my head goes into the blues, and I say, I could swing that blues thing in there. So that's not demanding for me, but to be able to marry the mellow part to the heavy part was the hard thing for me, because it should always be almost seamless. It shouldn't seem like it jumps to another spot. It should seem like it flows into that next spot. That's at least my opinion. So that song was hard. In the rest of the Overkill discography, the hardest songs for me to sing were back in the first version of Overkill when I was still learning about my voice, and that was with Bobby Gustafson, Sid Falk on drums, Didi, and myself. And I think the reason is because I was still involved in the writing of every song. But when there's too many ideas that are coming around and I don't think of the idea of the way I'm supposed to sing it, somebody else thinks it. To me, I can't do that easily. It's like bending it. It's trying to bend me around something. I'm not a tool. Put it that way. I'm not like someone else's tool. It's easier for me to be able to think the part and sing the part. So I'm not saying that I didn't write the majority of those lyrics and those melodies, but I wrote a little bit less of them. And I remember those songs, Nothing to Die For on New Year's Day, shit like that, where I was like, geez, I just don't fucking understand. So they were the harder ones to do the early days. But since then, I've been writing everything for myself. So that's kind of, it gives me that opportunity to, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's more comfortable, but it's my idea, So when it's originally my idea, then it's easy for me to make that idea come true, come to recorded life.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Cool, man. So, and you have one video clip released until now from this album. Obviously, you have the video of the song The Surgeon as well, but it's a visualizer. I'm interested in how was the video for the Scotch song made? Was all the shooting done there in USA?
Yeah, it was just done in Pennsylvania. I'm in Northwest New Jersey. I'm about 100 kilometers from New York City. And then about another 100 kilometers west is a city called Scranton, where we went and used we just used a warehouse there. And we got it all done in a day. It was, I'm not a big fan of the video. I mean, it's a necessary evil to do, I think, because it's really just an advertisement. I kind of like to think the song itself is the advertisement, not the visual part of it. But I understand why it's done. I mean, record companies want to be able to exploit it and have people interested in it. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not right. The Surgeon was just like a visualizer. We had nothing to do with that. There was people at Nuclear Blast. They were spinning the surgeon's scalpel, and then you saw him on the operating table. But I when it comes to visuals for the band, I've always been really about performance. with an audience. I mean, that to me is always the best type videos, like a live DVD, and take a cut out of that. But I do understand why they need to make those videos for, for advertising purposes.
Yeah. So on this record, because the discography of Overkill is infinite, but on this record, do you have any favorite song? I know it's difficult to answer, but maybe, I don't know, you have
Yeah, it's always like, it's like choosing between your children, I mean,
exactly. I know.
Which is the smart one, which is the pretty one, which is the athletic one.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, that's, one of the things, Lucas, that I like about making records, as opposed to songs, Overkill's never really written songs. We've written records. And I think it says where we came from, because, the original heavy metal wasn't about the song. It was about the entire record. And I think one of the things that was successful in Scorched is that when you press play, you want to hear it for 51 minutes. That you need the time to be able to sit down and listen to this record, not listen to, for instance, one song. I mean, I know people do that. They listen to one song or two in a row or something, and then they don't have the time. But I just feel like every song is a step into the next song, which to me is the feeling of success about the record itself, not about the individual songs. The individual songs are parts of the whole piece, so that's, to me, was accomplished on this record. There's very, very little filler on this record. And I think that that's due to the fact that we had extra time to work on it. We had, 2 years in the fucking pandemic, I was going out of my fucking mind. I was riding a motorcycle. I adopted another dog. I mean, it was like, I was living here by my fucking self. I was walking around in my underwear with a can of beer at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, it's not a fucking good thing,
Yes.
But the good thing was that extra time eventually was focused on Scorched. So eventually it became that entire record as opposed to a collection of songs. And I think that's what I'm most proud of when it comes to Scorched.
Cool, man. Perfect. And now I want to know more about the career of the band. I want to know, did you have any bad experience in a concert or tour, or something crazy that happened and remain as an anecdote?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I've lived so much on the road. Of course, I've had bad experiences. I mean, sometimes you work with shitty people. I mean,
yeah. I know. Yes.
I mean, any job, right? I mean, if you drive a truck, sometimes you work with shitty people.
Exactly.
I think the majority of my experiences have been good. I don't think, especially later on in our career, because I'm not going to say that we're a legacy band, but we're for sure, we're still vital in 2023. We're releasing something that can be listened to in 2023 that doesn't sound like it's just a redo of yesterday. So that's important. And I think that we get a lot of respect for that. But I think primarily the early days were when I ran into those problems, where nobody knew who the fuck you were. They threw you out of the place that you were supposed to be playing, because you didn't have your pass. I got punched in the nose a few times. I threw a few punches back. It was just the way it was. It was just a different world. But I do remember, a few riots. I remember there was a big rush of the stage in Zurich, Switzerland. When we were over there, it was one of our first tours, and the security were bikers. And, the bikers were picking up, clubs and hitting the kids. And we were rolling around with the bikers on the stage and, trying to stop the fight. So, I mean, is it a good experience? It's a memorable experience. I wouldn't want to do it again. That guy and a big egg on top of my head, but
Yeah. Now are two different worlds, if you have to compare the early days with the nowadays, but what do you prefer when you have to work in a new album of Overkill, because I mean the way of working has changed with the time, or is the same that in the early days?
Well, that's a great question, because it is different, and there's something exciting about the early days because they were the early days. That's because that's where we got our start. So, it's all we knew was to record with 2-inch tape. And now we're recording, obviously, with digital programs and apps and downloads. etc. But I'm a firm believer in the fact that, you know, everything is necessary to get you to the current day. And if you can't enjoy the current day, or you can't enjoy the journey that you're on, you're never getting anywhere. It's not about me getting somewhere and saying, oh, I'm finally fucking here. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with every step being necessary. If I don't enjoy this interview, why the hell am I in this fucking band? You know, that's the way I look at it. So this becomes, you know, the most important step of my life in the current day is, you know, our conversation at this point. So I like to think that I'm more a student of the present, but I never forgotten where I've come from with regard to the past.
Cool, man. And we are reaching to the end. I have 3 more questions left. So I want to make the opposite question. That is, what was the show or the best moment that you think Overkill has had? The most big show or the most important show of Overkill so far?
Well, I could tell you mine. I mean, I have my own. I don't know if it was for the band, but I have a personal high. And my mother was a singer, and she's a very very devout Catholic. And she stopped touring to have me, you know, with my father. She decided to stop touring, and she toured with some big bands. And but she never saw me. You know, she never saw me play live, and that's because my father was afraid, because I was her firstborn son, that because my dirty fucking mouth, that she would be very upset. She would be very upset. Well, my wife at the time said, you gotta come see him. There's a big birthday party. It's Dee Dee's 50th birthday party. We're having a big cake. Family's gonna be there. Well, my wife takes my father and mother to a big show in New York City. Accept is opening for us in New York City, and the place is full, 2,500 people. And my father says, "This is great. Look at all these kids running around having a pizza party. It's a birthday party. If I knew this would happen, I would have taken your mother here years ago, right?" And so he said to me, "Please don't use any dirty language on stage." So we finished the first 3 songs, and I could see my mother all the way out at the soundboard with my father and the sound man, right? And boom, we finished. And I said, good evening, New York. It's a very special night for me. And that's because my mother has finally come to see me play for the first time. And I promised her and my father I wouldn't use any fucking dirty language. But I saw her whole face got red, you know? And so it was the moment where we realized we were okay with each other, my mother and me. You know, it was okay that I had a dirty mouth, and it was okay with her that she finally got to come see me. So that was the highest point I ever had when it comes to Overkill.
Cool, man. Perfect. And now, what are your future plans after this release? Obviously, the album is released already, but do you have any Latin American tour in mind or not yet? I never got to see you live yet, and I would like.
Well, we're planning right now for a U.S. tour in June, July. It should start toward the end of that. There's some festivals in Europe at the end of the summer, and then another U.S. tour in October. So a South American thing would have to happen somewhere in your summer. Would have to happen somewhere between November and February, because we're back in Europe again in March. But I love coming down there and doing 12 or 15 shows. The only problem I ever have with touring South America is you have to get up too early in the morning to catch the airline flights. In the U.S., I can sleep on the bus until 2:00 in the afternoon. You know, I can sleep.
Yeah, it's really different. It's really different because there is a lot of distance, you know, from one city to another city. You have to go in a plane from each city. Yes, I understand.
But it's a great continent to come to. You know, I mean, I remember my first time in Argentina and in Buenos Aires, and I thought to myself, it's like, this is so beautiful. It's almost like being in old Europe, you know, in certain spots, you know, on the big avenues, and it was just some really great memories of South America in general. But I love going there just for that reason, because it's different, and I can put up with the difference in touring for 2 weeks because the crowds are just fucking amazing. So it's just good times. Yeah.
Cool, man. Now, to finish, after more than 40 years of career, what advice would you give to a band that is just starting out in the industry? You know, a tip for a new band.
You know what I said once? Somebody said, what advice would you give? Get the fuck out of my way, kid. I'm not done yet.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the best advice, man. That's the best advice. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep writing songs and believe in yourself, and get out of my way.
Exactly. I agree with that. Bobby, was a really perfect interview. Yeah, you are the number 100 interview that I made. So was really great have you here today, and I hope you had a good time with me. I hope to see you in Argentina.
Time, man. Lucas, I really appreciate it, and I'm glad you love the record. And I have to move on, but thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Adios, cabrone.
Adios, Bobby. Goodbye.
Okay, man. Bye-bye.